And at the end, we have the chief executive of the Kentucky Girl Scouts who's going to say a few words as well. And all of the products the chefs use tonight we have available for sale in the front in case something you really like, you can purchase that product as well. So I think without that, Chef, this is Chef Kim Wood.
I guess I'll just stall. Step back, everybody.
Ed Valentine back. He had a little trouble with his health in December. He missed the class. He designed the menu first and he had sugar plums on there. And Jim was so impressed making sugar plums, he wants to make it a regular item on the menu. That's kind of an inside joke.
I don't think that's exactly what I
said. You know those commercials on TV and they talk really fast? There's a disclaimer at the end. Well, this is our disclaimer. If anybody is uncomfortable because they're so tight in their seating, or they can't hear, or they're warm, talk to this man right here. That's our disclaimer. Not like I'm going to throw him under the bus or anything, but we wanted to do this for 100 people. We have over 120 in the room right now. Because it's been so successful, we've had so many people, and we're just trying to accommodate as many people as we possibly can. Okay, so if you have any suggestions of how we can make this better, please let Stu know, because that's what the goal is here. Okay? How many have been here before? I'm sure lots of them. How many have never been here? Good. How many have never been to Spindletop? Okay. And do we have any members here? Just a few. That's why we're doing this. This is a twofold reason. This is our sales pitch. We want to sell Stu's product because it's a great product. He's a member here at the club. We always try to help as many of our members out as possible. We also are trying to expose people who have never been to Spindletop to what we offer here. Our quality of our food, the building itself. We just came out with our calendar of events for 2013. We have well over 250 special events planned this year for our members, from cooking classes to Sunday brunch to picnics and lots of kids activities and things like that, and everything in between. So that's kind of why we do this. Okay, this is his event. This is done through Stuartos. This is not a club event for Spindletop, but Tim and I kind of end up doing it. He ended up doing cooking classes at somebody's house here in January while our kitchen was being renovated. We ended up in the summer. We've been trying to get a new kitchen hood for the last 8 or 10 years. And in the summer, it was 110 degrees outside, and we had a picnic. And the members didn't want to sit outside because it was too hot. They wanted to come inside with their picnic. So we cooked all the food inside. The humidity was about 95 that day, and the air was really heavy. And all the smoke got into the kitchen, it got up into the rafters in the attic, set out the smoke detectors. The fire department was here, but luckily we had 4 board members at the pool that day. And they all come running, what's going on? Well, nothing, we're just cooking, like we normally do. And it was just smoke everywhere. Subsequently, they approved the new hood system. After that, quite a bit. So we didn't have any cooking facilities here in January. They spent quite a bit of money trying to get it set up. Okay? Any questions? Anybody wants to have a tour of the building afterwards who's never been here before? Any of the staff can give you a tour. Or Anita at the front desk, she can give you she's a wealth of knowledge about what's going on here at Spindletop. If you're interested in seeing the actual building, and if you want to come back and see some of the hood systems, you're more than welcome to. We're kind of proud of it. You know? We have a little book in the kitchen. It's called the Red Book. And it's a shift report from shift to shift. So we know what's going on. If we have any issues we need to deal with, somebody calls in sick or whatever, we write it in this Red Book. So I came in a Sunday morning, and the Red Book said, Chef, I thought you'd like to know that the thermometer in my pocket last night on the cooking line was 140 degrees. Subsequently, that's one of the reasons why we had to do this, because it was a dangerous environment back there.
I didn't
This
know
house-
it looked like this.
This house was built for 2 people in 1935. So we have about 1,100 members, so you can see a kitchen for 2 people versus 1,100 members, that's kind of a stretch. Your menu in front of you, we did a lot of recipes for you tonight. We're not going to cook every single thing out here, but we're going to talk about it. We have a special guest here. This is Girl Scout Cookie Month. So we're going to do a couple of Girl Scout cookie recipes for dessert. And Susan is here. I don't know where she's sitting. Where are you? She's way in the back of the corner. She's the CEO for the Girl Scouts in this area. I'm sure, how many of you been to Girl Scouts? You got a few Girl Scouts in here? And then we're going to have a special guest appearance here. We'll have a special guest appearance about 7 o'clock to help us with the Girl Scout cookies. Now, we have to be real careful about one of them because it's a peanut butter bourbon Girl Scout cookie. So we're going to have to be careful about the bourbon, but if you're making them for adults, you can put the bourbon in. You know? And then we actually got a couple of, Stu's got a couple of new flavored sugars. Not a couple, I don't know how many he's got. A lot, but we used the espresso cane sugar. We're going to roll those bourbon balls in that coffee flavored sugar, which is pretty good. And then the wild berry sugar we put in the parfait. The parfaits have some of the Girl Scout cookies in it. Okay? And if you have any questions, just holler them out. We're more than happy to answer everything we can. And turn the heat up. Is that better here? Okay. It'll get warm in here. When we start. Okay. What we're going to do, your first course is oysters a la Roxy's. Roxy's is this restaurant over here. Roxy Highland was Pansy Ounce prize-winning 3-gated mare, championship mare for 6 years, I believe it was. A saddlebred horse. She actually was buried behind the fence here. If you ever go to the horse park, to the museum, Saddlebred Museum, there's a big statue out front when you walk in. That's Roxy Highland. So we've named Roxy's after Roxy Highland. So these are oysters that we do, and we're also going to do poach a couple of pieces of shrimp that go with that. Okay? Now, when we poach shrimp, we poach them in a court bouillon. Or since this is the beginning of Lent, I guess we should call it coubillon, which is what they call it down in Norfolk. It's a court bouillon. Tim's going to talk you through it a little bit. He's got water in here, and all these other ingredients. And what we do is we put, you got the recipe in front of you. You put the ingredients in, and you bring it to a simmer, and you let it simmer for 45 minutes to an hour to extract all those flavors. Then you strain it. Put the liquid back on the stove, and we're going to poach the shrimp in that liquid. Okay? Give it a little bit of flavor. He's going to walk you through that. I'm going to go back and get the first course plated up while he's talking about the shrimp. You can go ahead and poach the shrimp too. Okay? He's got all this experience now, cooking class. He can. I'm getting close to retirement, so he's going to take over here.
No.
Hi everybody, is there anybody having any issues hearing my voice? Fantastic, I don't need to lean in front of this big microphone. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over the recipe for the court bouillon. This is a pretty classic recipe. This can be used for any seafood whatsoever, shrimp, whitefish, salmon, and it can be reused over and over and over again. So when we're done with this and we're done poaching it, we're actually going to let all the food sediment settle to the bottom and just pull out the clear liquid at the end of it. And that's what it's going to look like. And this is after we cooked all the shrimp for tonight. So this has been cleared out. Still got a little color in it. This will be refrigerated. Next time we want to do seafood, next time down the week, we'll pull this out, put it back on the stove. Court bouillon's all ready. So, and you can also thicken that up a little bit, turn it into a sauce for your fish. It's full of the flavors. There's no reason to just throw it down the sink and waste it all. So what we're going to start out with is the water, pretty much a half gallon. This is all guesstimate because I'm trying to do it for a camera. So we've got the gallon of water, half gallon of water already in. This is just basic white vinegar. I'm just going to add that right to it. And I've let this get warm. I'm not going to let it reach the temperature we're looking for because I'm adding cold product to it, and that would be counterproductive anyways. So I'll let it get a little warm, and then I'll start adding everything up. That way it can all come to that temperature. Then we're going to follow it in with 2 cups of white wine. We use a Sycamore Lane Chardonnay.
Why a specific wine? Just because you
White is going to not turn the entire thing pink when you put the fish in there. You can do a poaching liquid with red wine, not a problem whatsoever, especially if you're looking for that flavor. Any white wine at all. We use the Chardonnay, it's a little drier, has little sweet notes at the end of it, and that kind of adds to it because then we don't have to add any sugars or anything to this to try and sweeten it up. Follow that up with onion. Probably should have put all this in order, it would have made my life easier. And then celery and carrots. I have read this before, I know I keep looking at it, but I'm trying to make sure I don't miss anything. And all this is rough chop. You don't have to sit there and try and do a brunoise. You probably want to know what a brunoise is. Knife cut. It's very small, knife cut, square. You don't have to be fancy or artful with this. Just rough chop it. Get some good sized pieces in there. That way you're getting all your color in the liquid. You're getting all your flavor. And you kind of want them to all be the same size because you don't want some things to overcook and some things to not get there. Garlic, you don't even need to cut up. Just throw the whole cloves in like that because if you chop it up, you're going to get way too much garlic flavor because now you're pushing all the oil out of the garlic. Parsley stems, because nobody knows what to do with parsley stems. So parsley stems, and then bay leaves, because everybody wants to dig those out later. Pickling spice, which, believe it or not, already has bay leaves in there, but we want more of the flavor. So we up the bay leaf. And then it says Old Bay. Old Bay is pretty much a staple seafood spice. You go to Kroger or Meijer, literally says Old Bay on there, and it's just a fish spice. We get, I guess what you would call the bulk generic version, and it's called Florida Bay spice, same thing. So we're just going to add all that together.
Tim, what's a pickling spice? I never heard of that.
It's whole cloves, bay leaves, peppercorns.
You can buy it?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's meant specifically for pickling. Anytime you do homemade pickles or eggs or anything like that, all it does is add the flavor notes to the vinegar. That way what you're pickling doesn't taste straight like vinegar. It actually has flavors to it. But yeah, you can totally buy it. It clearly says pickling spice on there. So we'll give this a quick stir. Make sure everything's in there, and then we're just going to bring this up to temperature. Now, I have no idea how I'm supposed to drag this conversation out for the 15 minutes it's going to take. So does anybody have any going there? Pour bouillon? Absolutely. You can break it down into smaller containers, freeze it, and then pull out what you need to thaw the day before.
If you don't freeze it, how long does it last?
It's fish water. Week's about it. Yeah. Okay, so does anybody have a comment? You gotta help me out here. I can't just make stuff up on the fly. Does anybody have like a Pillsbury recipe they're having trouble? Nobody know how to work the Easy Bake Oven. I am here to help. It's an educational process. I just want to be helpful.
So this is 45 minutes?
This, okay, the important thing about a poaching liquid is never let it come to a boil. Never, ever, ever, ever. Don't let it, because you're not boiling the meat you're poaching it. So you want to simmer. You want the bubbles, but you don't want the roll.
But the bouillon itself, you can let it boil before you put the fish in?
No, same thing. Anytime you're doing a poach, you never want to come to a boil, because then that's an entirely different cooking process.
When you're cooking it, when you're cooking the pork bouillon, it's okay. When you're cooking the fish, you have to bring it down to like 180, 190. Simmer. When you're making the bouillon, it's okay.
Oh, when you're making the bouillon.
When you're making the actual mix.
Medium.
And I'll make my own disclaimer. If there's any mistakes on the recipes, if there's an A where it's not supposed to be, that's me.
No, I don't bring this up to boil, but yes, you can. I'm trying to do this project all at once, so I've got everything in the pot. I'm going to bring it up to the temperature that I actually want to poach in, and then I'm just going to go ahead and poach. if I was doing this in a multi-step where we were discussing earlier, breaking it down into smaller containers for freezing and use later, that's not a problem. Bring it to a boil, get it out of your way, break it down, after you strain it, of course, and then you're good to go.
Is that the bouillon from today, or is this
No,
not?
the bouillon from today is right behind you, Chef. Already cleared and in this little...
So, from Magic, after we cook the 250 pieces of shrimp for tonight's party, this is the liquid that was left over. Okay, it's nice and clear. All the sediment from the shrimp settles to the bottom, and we scooped off the top. So obviously, we're not going to sit here for 45 minutes and cook the pork bouillon, okay, because we don't have that kind of time. So this was made from today. And we're just going to put a little bit in there. And we're going to get that hot, and we will go ahead and poach those 2 pieces of shrimp.
We're ready to go as soon as I see bubbles.
Okay?
All your setup.
When this is done, you can strain it, put it in the freezer. Break it down into 2 pieces, 2 packages, put it in the freezer. Next time you want to cook salmon, shrimp, trout, whatever you want to do, bring it out of the freezer and you can reuse it. We just happen to make, today we made, I don't know, 4 gallons of it.
How long do you keep it in the freezer?
6 months is probably 6 months to a year, they say, for frozen foods. And again, it depends on the freezer.
So do multiple uses make it better? I mean, like.
For us, it does. Yeah. So we're going to start making the oyster recipe. And we've talked about this before. We're a little different in that we've got to feed 120 people tonight. So the first course is already being plated up. Okay, you have to look at it from a mathematical standpoint. You're feeding 6 or 8 people at home, it's pretty easy. Everybody's kind of around. But if it takes 1 minute to plate up the appetizer, that means it's going to take 120 minutes to plate up 120 appetizers. 2 hours. Who's going to wait 2 hours for an appetizer? You're going to walk out of the place. So you got to figure if it takes you 10 a minute, it's going to take you 12 minutes to plate up an appetizer. So when we're plating up for large quantities, you have to keep that kind of thing in the back of your head. Plus, the timing has got to be right. You want to try to make sure the food is as hot as possible. You don't want it to get cold as an appetizer. So we're already plating up the first course while we're doing this. Otherwise, we're going to be done with the cooking, and you're going to sit here and wait for 10 minutes for the first course, and that's just not going to be good. Okay? Shrimp out of oysters, out of Roxy's. You got the ingredients in front of you. It's got gorgonzola cheese in it, bacon bits. You got the roasted right there. I can't remember what else it is. Shallots, garlic.
Alright, so if you'll turn your textbooks to the baked oyster we'll go down the page and plot stuffing the class prep with. We're going to start off with gorgonzola cheese. Who knows what gorgonzola cheese is? Ah, it's a blue vein double cream, exactly. There it is. Yeah. Spinach chopped. I like to take the stems out. They're chewy, they're bulky, they're kind of fibrous, and they don't really add the flavor profile I'm looking for. Totally edible, not necessarily great, so I've already de-stemmed this. And the best way to do spinach is to lay the leaves on top of each other, roll them over, and then you'll have a better grip on them as you go to do this little chiffonade. So actually use the weight of the spinach of itself, stacked on itself, to help you with the holding it down thing. So we've got 4 ounces of spinach. We're just going to mix that right in raw. Washed. Then we've got a ½ pound of bacon bits as is. Bacon is so good they use it on other things to make them better. So bacon, meat candy.
So in a commercial kitchen, we usually bake bacon when we're doing it for large quantities. So one of our cooks this morning trayed up 2 trays of bacon because we part cooked them ahead of time. About 45 minutes later, there was tray and 3/4 left. And then about 15 minutes later, there was a tray and a half left. And by the time he went home today at 2 o'clock, there was 1 tray of bacon. And there was nobody else in the kitchen but the cooks. That's true. That's true story. It just quickly disappears. Charlotte?
So of course, you know, I went ahead and pre-measured all of this. So you've got your shallots we're mixing in. We got those in a fine mince. I just ran those through a Cuisinart. There's no need to sit there with a knife all the time. Same thing with the garlic. Whole garlic went right in the Cuisinart. Made a nice little mince. All my cut work is done. Scallions. Scallions go in. Now you've got your oysters here. We'll go over that real fast. You just want to take a spoon and there's a little connector muscle. When you get underneath the oyster, the first thing you want to do is just take that spoon and slide it right underneath so that the oyster is completely removable from the shell, and then you put it right back in the shell. Yes.
Do they need to be rinsed at all?
You know, that's kind of a good question. If the odor isn't apparent that it needs to be washed, I don't, because I like the taste of the sea. I like the brine that comes from a natural oyster. If they've been quick frozen, yeah, I tend to wash them off. But you know, if their odor is pleasant and I shuck them myself, I usually don't wash them off at all.
If you're a true oyster eater, you don't want to rinse them. You're going to put up with a little bit of grit or a little bit of an oyster shell if you really like, if you want the fresh oyster. Some oysters come in, some oysters are dirtier than others, and if you wash them really good before you shuck them, you usually reduce the bulk of the grittiness from getting inside. Plus, if you know how to shuck them, that helps too.
Okay, so now that I've got the actual meat of the oyster separated, I'm going to add a little bit of cream to this mix, and that's going to help it all bind together.
This is ultra pasteurized cream, and I'm making a mess. I feel like I'm at home. With a butter fat content of about 46%.
And for everybody else, that just means it's good. Okay, so now that we've got our stuffing ready, and and you can see that it's kind of sticking to itself. If it's not giving you what you want and not forming correctly, you can always add a little more cream. But please bear in mind that spinach is going to cook down when you put it in the oven. It's going to release some of the water from it, and it will compact down. So the easiest thing to do is you just stuff it on top. Don't worry about getting it on the sides of your table. You can always pick it back up and put it right back in the bowl. Alright, so we've got the stuffing set up on these.
I notice that the water is boiling here. Through the magic of television.
Okay, now what we have here are panko breadcrumbs. Panko breadcrumbs are a large grain Japanese breadcrumb. You can buy them anywhere. They come very dry, so so I would normally mix a little bit of melted butter with this. That's going to do two things. It's going to help this pack together so that I can put a working coat on top of this oyster, and it's also going to keep my breadcrumbs from burning. It will allow them to toast and not burn. And if I want a little more color, I can add a little paprika to this panko butter mix, and that panko will give it that brown color on top that makes it look like it's, you know, oven roasted. Because everybody eats with their eyes. Yeah, so the butter's a buzz. I'm not gonna
Well, it's a little cold in here, huh?
That's what it is. Stick it in the water.
Pretty solid. That's okay.
So once you've got these set up, you can do all of these at the exact same time, however many oysters you're doing. Have them set up on a rack. You don't need to spray the rack down. Pop them in the oven, 15 minutes? Yep. Tops, blam, done. You're going to have a little bit of moisture. Like I said, that spinach is going to weep due to the heat, but that's fine. So any water you see in your pan is totally normal. You didn't do anything wrong.
Here's your oyster.
Right back on there.
I dropped the shrimp in here. It's poaching a little bit. Tomorrow's Valentine's Day. One of our choices for appetizer is a trio of oysters. They're going to get one Oysters Rockefeller. They're going to get an oyster shooter, which is going to be in a little glass with some Kettle One vodka, a little lemon, and they're going to get a deep fried oyster in cornmeal. And that'll be the first one of the choices for the appetizer. Okay, I think the shrimp is almost ready. We're going to drop it right into some ice water. We're going to chill it to stop the cooking.
So you put that in ice water just to stop it?
Stop the cooking. You don't want to overcook it. It'll get tough.
You do that with salmon or do it with salmon?
Depends on what you're doing with the salmon. If you're going to eat it right away, no. But we have an appetizer on Roxy's menu, and I can throw that in there. We poach it, and then we chill it, and then we wrap it in finely sliced prosciutto ham. We'll serve it as a chilled appetizer. If you're going to use it as a chilled appetizer, you'd want to pop it in some ice water right away. So through the magic of television, this is a baked oyster. Okay? And then what we did with appetizer you're getting is we put a couple of pieces of shrimp on here. And then we drizzle it in lemon oil. Choose lemon oil over the greens and over the... Small glutein, you can put whatever you want in there. But it's the truffle oil that we're trying to show. Yes, a little bit. You always want to put some salt in the potato so it gets in the potato. It's like when you cook rice, you want to put salt in with it because if you salt it afterwards, it doesn't get into the kernels, it just gets on the outside. And you end up just tasting salty. You don't taste the nice flavor. So the next course is a chicken breast that we marinated in Dijon mustard and grain mustard overnight, and then we put it on a piece of parchment paper, and we baked it in the oven on trays. You can do the same thing at home. You're going to bake it on a tray. It might only be for 6 people, but we had to bake 120 pieces, so we had 6 trays. We baked that in the oven, and then we took some balsamic vinegar from Stu. We took 3 bottles and put it on the stove with a little bit of sugar and reduced it by half and made a reduction out of this balsamic vinegar. The sugar adds a little bit of sweetness, otherwise it'll get bitter. And then we took it off the stove, put it back in his bottle with one of these little pores on top. Then we took an eggplant and we skinned the eggplant, sliced it about a ½ inch thick, and salted it, and put a weight on it, and put it in the refrigerator overnight. And the salt draws out all those nasty impurities that you get in eggplant. But the secret is when it comes out, you need to rinse it very, very well, otherwise you have salty eggplant. And then when we breaded it, Tim's going to bread it right here, but we'll use some rosemary sea salt in the flour, and it's a standard breading, flour, egg wash, and then breadcrumbs. We use the panko breadcrumbs, but you can use anything you want. And when it came, and we deep fry them, but if you're going to cook them at home, you might just pan fry them, like you're cooking a fried green tomato. But when it comes out of the grease and you put it on a tray, salt it right then and there with some of that rosemary sea salt. That's going up underneath the chicken. Chicken's going on top of that crouton. And then those mashed potatoes are going to be dished up on the side. And then we're going to drizzle that balsamic vinegar over the top of that chicken that we made a reduction on. Pretty simple.
Now, what kind of impurities are in the egg white? I don't use red wine.
It's just the natural impurities. It's real bitter. And at certain times of the year, it's more bitter than others.
Are you supposed to take the outside off?
You can if you want. I find that it has very tough.
Yeah, it does.
You want bread? So obviously we only got one piece of bread.
Stu has given me permission to throw stuff at people who talk during this class, so.
All right, as you can see, this is a perfect example of oxidation. Whenever you cut your eggplant, apples, bananas, anything like that, you want to submerge them in water, maybe even add a little lemon to that water, and that will help keep the oxygen off of it. This is still totally edible, but it's not exactly appealing to the eye, and the texture of it is starting to break down a little bit. That's normal. It starts getting a little soft and mushy. But we're going to use what's known as the double cutting method? Yeah. Okay, the wet dry method. So one
wet, one dry.
So with my dry hand, I'm going to place it in my seasoned flour that I've added the rosemary salt to. This is just regular AP, and the AP stands for all-purpose. And now that I've got a good coat on that, the whole reason why I put the flour on this is now the egg wash has something to stick to when I use my wet hand to put it in the egg wash. The reason why you want to use a wet hand, dry hand, because if I use the wet hand to put this in the flour, this hand's going to be covered in flour. I'm going to have the big, flour.
Who's done that before?
This is just a straight mixture of Mary Kay, which is a fish batter, or a fish breading, and panko, which is the Japanese breadcrumbs.
It can be any kind of breadcrumbs you want. We happen to use a lot of panko here, and we buy a Mary Kay spice out of Indiana. We bread our banana peppers in it, and some of our green tomatoes, things like that. It's just a standard breading that you can purchase. And as always, you got to be careful with those because a lot of the first ingredient is salt. You got to be careful. It's Marion, M-A-R-I-O-N-K-K-A-Y. They're the company that does all the spices for the curry. That's how they got started. And they have a website. You can purchase on the website.
So now if I was doing this at home, like Chef said, I would just get a small pan, put my oil in there, bring it up to where when I drop a little bit of the panko that I have left over, it makes a sound. Because you always want your food to talk to you when you put it in the pan. If it's not making a sound when it hits the pan, you're not doing it with enough heat. And if you do it with too little heat, then you're allowing the grease to actually get into the product instead of cooking the outside. So make sure your grease is nice and hot, but you don't want it to smoke because that changes the flavor profile. You would just let it brown on the sides. Once you start seeing color appear on the sides here, you can pretty much guess that the bottom has a similar color. Flip it over, rinse, lather, repeat. Oil? Olive oil has a great flavor. It has a much lower smoke point than soybean oil. So if you're trying to cook a lot, you might want to use the soybean because then you don't have to redo the oil.
I think the answer is Stuartos olive oil is great when you saute it. I
was getting there.
He's not around. We can say that the soybean oil is cheap.
But if you want to be a chef about it,
okay, your entrees are coming out. Same process. We started those about 20 minutes ago, played them up. We put them in a hot box and wheel them right out. Now, a lot of hotels, will, you know, party starts at 7 o'clock. They will plate up the food at 5 o'clock, put it in a hot box, you know, and then it sits there until they're ready. We plate it up right before people are ready to eat, so we don't have any lag time. We put it in the hot box in the kitchen, which is at the far end. We roll it over here and we serve it. So it just got plated up. They're actually starting to serve over there. He's going to drain the mashed potatoes, the potatoes here.
I don't wear glasses often, but it seems like I always wear them when I have to put my face in a steamy
And the only thing we did differently that you might not do at home, when we serve the mashed potatoes, we put them in a pastry bag. And we pipe each one out of the pastry bag because it makes it look a little nicer. Instead of just a, you know, a lump of mashed potato. When you're at home, kids are just popping on their, what's wrong with that? People eat with their eyes, so we want to try to make it look as attractive as possible. Okay, here's the potatoes, and we're going to add a little bit of truffle salt to this. And he's going to mash them, and don't add any liquid until you get your mashed potatoes mashed. Then add the liquid, because they get lumpy. Once you thin it down with liquid, you can never get the lumps out. Unless you want a lumpy mashed potato, which is, you know, as you dry, then add your ladies, Mickey King, actually she's an ex-Olympian in diving, a gold medalist. She's a member here at the club. She's kind of like behind the scenes with our tennis program. Was having dinner with this young lady right here, and I went out to say hello. Turns out she is the CEO for the Wildwood Wilderness Rural Council of Girl Scouts. So we got talking. And I have 2 daughters and 4 granddaughters, so they're all been Girl Scouts at one point or another. We got talking about the cooking class, and so I asked her if she would like to come talk a little bit about the Girl Scouts, and that's why we did the Girl Scout cookies in with the dessert, because it is Girl Scout Cookie Month. Anybody needs Girl Scout cookies, we can take care of you here too. We have a guest chef tonight, my youngest granddaughter, Bailey. Right here. She's with Council 5400 over here by Sandersville Elementary.
You can make it good stuff.
So I asked Bailey if she would come and help us put the dessert together for tonight's class. She agreed to do that. She's shaking, I believe, but I think we'll make
Stuartos. The story I'm going to tell tomorrow morning is that we had an overstuffed crowd tonight because y'all came to the Girl Scouts. So that's my story, and I'm going to do it. Girl Scouts is traditionally known, we talk about cookies, camp, and crafts. But what Bailey and other girls like her are really learning through the cookie program is public speaking, which we may not hear tonight, but she's learning it. Business skills, setting goals. She has some goals that she set and her troop has set for what they want to accomplish through their cookie sales. So we have a 2 million sales force right now out there in the United States selling cookies, and about 7,500 in Kentucky's Wilderness Road Council selling cookies right now. And we're really grateful to everyone who has such fond memories of Troop 89 for their favorite cookies. And we want you to know what cookies do. There are so many girls like Bailey whose families can't afford to have to experience Girl Scouts and learn and grow and become the next generation of leaders. And through the cookie sale program, we're able to make sure that every girl can have a Girl Scout experience, from that $12 membership to $72 for an outdoor adventure experience to $250 for a summer resident camp experience. So thank you all for being here tonight. Enjoy the cookies. Bailey is going to be able to take orders because I know you want to buy lots of the cookies. And if you can't get hold of her, the council office is at 2277 Executive Drive, 859-293-2621. Or call Chef Ed or go on the website. And thank you again for being here, Chef Ed. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. First thing we do is a parfait. So here's the parfait glass. What we did is we went ahead and marinated some fresh raspberries, fresh blueberries, dried cranberries, bananas, and some strawberries. And we put them into a big mixing bowl, and we did, again, we have to do this with a large quantity. And this is what's left, and we mixed it with flavored yogurt. Strawberry yogurt, blueberry yogurt, and the key ingredient was Stuartos wild berry cane sugar. We added a little bit of that berry cane sugar into the mix, and that's what this is. And we took lemonade cookies, typical lemonade cookies, and we ground them up in the Cuisinart as part of the parfait mix. And that's all we did. You want to help me, baby? Let's put a spoon of cookies in the bottom of that. And then put another scoop of that in the bottom. Maybe 2 scoops. One more.
You ever get the feeling you're watching the end of your era happen?
And then we'll layer it up with another roll of Girl Scout cookie, lemonade.
Great job.
Yeah, we'll put some more of the mix in. Now comes the fun part.
Sorry, Chef, I found the world's dullest scissors.
We're going to put some whipped cream on top of that. And we made these early this morning. Not early, we made them probably about 1 o'clock. So the chance for the cookies and the flavor of the yogurt to melt together. You want to squeeze the whipped cream on top? When we serve it, we're going to serve that with, we'll put it right on top. Right in the center. That's going to be your parfait. Okay, for the last one, we have 1 box of Girl Scout cookies. We have some peanut butter. Sugar. So, what we're going to do is we're going to grind these up with the Cuisinart. You want to help me? What goes in? Pulse it. Susan, do we have order forms here? Just give me your name and number, we can get hooked up to you.
Yeah.
We're up to about 100, Bailey's up to about 150 bucks.
Oh, she's going to do so good.
But she had to turn them in by week ago or something?
We'll take some of it.
Okay. Right here we have the recipe says 4 ounces of water. So we have the butter here, and it's kind of melted, a little soft. Now, if you're making a lot, please put it in a mixing bowl and mix it in the mixer. But out here, we're just going to mix it with our hands. Okay? So we're going to put them, and then we're going to put a little bit of peanut butter in here. So we have some sugar, some confectionery sugar.
It is all sugar-free. No calories. Sugar, it's sugar-free sugar.
No calories.
And then I have some of the Nature of the Gods right here. A little bit of bourbon. We're going to add that to that mix. And you can add more bourbon if you want, less bourbon. If it's for the kids, obviously you don't have to put any bourbon. It's kind of a kids' activity.
What bourbon are you using?
Maker's Mark. We find that Maker's Mark has a little bit sweeter flavor when we're doing desserts. In the recipe it calls for 10 egg sugar. I guess that's the commercial in me. That's powdered sugar. That's what it's called. I never thought about putting powdered sugar in there. So what you want to do with these bourbon balls, peanut butter balls, is you want to mix them and put them in the refrigerator and let them set overnight. Because you want the liquid to soak up into the bourbon ball. Otherwise, when you bite into it, it's crunchy.
What are you guys doing?
After we had the mix in the refrigerator, we made the mix yesterday and sat in the refrigerator. They rolled them into little balls, put them back in the refrigerator because the butter has a tendency to make them real soft. Then we brought them out and we rolled them in the espresso cane sugar from Stuartos, which is this right here.
Yeah. After they got done, they rolled
When we roll it in that cane sugar, espresso cane sugar, put it back in the refrigerator and let it set. And there's the ball, right there.
I think so. You're me.
And that's what we get pushed this good.
We're doing yet another drawing. There's one more chance for prizes on
And I've got next a bottle of lemon, extra virgin olive oil, and the winner is Kim Smith.
Do I have power or do I have I'm sure they're positive. Didn't I tell you?
All right, and last but definitely not least, I have a bottle of cilantro and roasted onion, extra virgin olive oil. And the winner is David Samuels. S-A-M-E-A-L-S. Samuels. David. Yelling, you're over there doing
something I can say tonight
behold the power of table rivalry.
I've used this on my couch.
No questions at all?
Yeah, that's a good question.
You're in the last table in the corner, huh?
Birthday crew.
And trust me, we'll get your attention.
We were wanting to know, when you make a meringue pie, how do you keep the meringue separated from the crust?
Great question.
Eat it before it's separated.
When you whip your egg whites, what do you add to it?
A little cream of tartar, a little sugar, maybe a little vanilla, or just a little flavoring.
I've never had that problem. I don't know.
We all get that problem.
Are you talking about? They come talking about the edges of the pie.
Right.
Well, we can investigate that and find out. I've seen meringue where it cracks when you cook it because it's overcooked. For those of you that were here in December, and I was not here in December, and I got a lot of farewell cards. Thank you for all of that. Good night. I learned a couple of things, and one of which is I told Tim that I can now schedule 2 weeks of vacation at Christmas time next year. He took care of it while I was gone, so he said no way.
I'm sure most of those thank you and get well cards were for people who just wished you would hurry up and get back. I know I sent one. Yes, sir. Yes. This table here would like to know when this side of the room is going to be rising.
What? 12, 11? This is like a big class for us. We keep doing this over and over again, and it becomes increasingly difficult for us to come up with what you guys want to eat. So if you have any suggestions, by all means, please give them to us.
We tried lamb one time, and he has changed it because he had about 20 reservations.
Yeah, you did lamb one time, you did lamb because of
Somebody had a great suggestion with the vegetarian option.
How about some antelope?
Now there you go.
Yes, ma'am.
Not original.
The salmon bluegrass.
I'm sure it's ready.
And if you have any ideas about cooking
And on behalf of myself, Spindletop Paul, the servers, Chef Valentine, and Stu, I'd like to thank all of you for coming out, because if you weren't here, we could be meeting and talking to each other in the kitchen. We really appreciate it. Once again, anyone wanting to take a tour of the facilities, feel free to find anybody wearing a Spindletop name tag. We'll see what we can do about that. Thank you again.